You like thrill rides?
I love them!
You're gonna love this!
The Resident Evil 4 remake, a near perfect reimagining of the genre-defining classic, and one of the best received games of all time. Yet, not a game I have a great deal of experience with, having only completed both it and the original once each.
You vulgar, utterly uncivilized!
I know, it's sacrilege, and I'm a terrible person. I know I've got to find a way to make it up to the game.
I simply wish to share this gift.
So what better way to honour it than to make my first ever attempt on professional difficulty even tougher by making it a challenge run? How about trying to beat a new game run with no reward items using only shotguns? Yeah, that sounds utterly crushing. Let's get to it.
Excellent!
After learning all we could possibly need to know about killing bioweapons through the Raccoon City incident and the knife school of Crocodile Dundee,
There's a knife.
our main man Leon is dispatched on another vital mission, saving the presumably least loved daughter of the President of the United States using underwhelming force. I mean, seriously, one guy with an awesome coat, a pirate fetish, and armed with just a handgun, being nominally backed up by the Chuckle Brothers? Guaranteed mission success, right? Paul immediately disappears, so we follow his cries.
Oh dear.
We find an imposing cabin in the woods. In the basement, we become painfully aware that he has cried his last to me, and we quickly find out the cause. Our first foe bursts in to add Leon to his body count.
No fucking way.
We know exactly how to handle this. Just send all of our weapons to storage, and then have our brain removed via a tentacle, right? Well, I guess that's what happens when you aren't allowed to use the knife as an escape item. Second attempt goes a little smoother, with us dodging around this knuckle dragger, evading his mates, and then bursting out of a window to our temporary freedom. In the village, we attempt to sneak around to gather supplies, but this results in getting spotted almost immediately. As the horde bears down on us, we dash into a house and barricade the door behind us. Dr. Salvador makes his way onto the scene, promising a swift death, so we grab the W870, some shells, and begin running in circles trying to avoid being torn to pieces. The goal here is to either kill 15 enemies or to survive until the bell rings, and unsurprisingly, we aren't going to have the ammo we need to make the kills. So we run and we gun. We get grabbed and we get stabbed. We get bonked, bashed and smashed. We struggle, taking blows that we would love to parry if the rules allowed it, and hammer the X button to escape grabs that we would typically cut our way out of. But we don't get chopped in half.
La campana.
And then the sweet bells of gambling addiction sound out, drawing the threat away to the nearest Mecha Bingo Hall. After a quick restock, we segue into the first ad hoc rule of the run. We are, in fact, allowed to craft shotgun shells, so we do exactly that. I debated this for a while and ultimately decided that I'm not, in fact, an enemy of sanity and do in fact want to be able to shoot things sometimes. On the farm, we face off against some more villagers and a man bull bloke.
No, dude, he's half man, half bear, and half pig.
We leg it, using an explosive trap to help create some space, and then decide to attempt to kill every enemy in the area. And, to be honest, I have no idea why I did this. Spending ammo like this has to be avoided at all costs. I guess all I can do is chalk this up to a lesson learned, and move on to the next section. We take some bumps, but mostly evade our way to the docks and through to the next cabin. With a little bit of luck and some iframes, we make it to the basement, where we make a new friend. Well, sort of. Luis is a little standoffish, and we don't have long to bond before Mendez ragdolls us unconscious and inducts us into the local cult. Leon and his new bestest buddy in the whole wide world awaken chains, providing the perfect opportunity for some unnecessary angst and exposition.
Maybe. Some missing senorita?
Luis has seen Ashley,
Saw some men dragging someone to the old church.
so now we have a lead. In exchange for the information, we save Luis from an axe-wielding lunatic and then dispatch him in an underwhelming manner that completely subverted my expectations. We escape, and leg it past some guys we would love to be allowed to sneak kill until we are able to recover our missing inventory. From there, we meet the most important character in the game, the merchant. We take this opportunity to upgrade the damage on our shotgun as much as possible, since this is going to be the best way to make our ammo go further. I expected the next section of the game to be utterly outrageous.
Absolutely outrageous!
What with there being an overwhelming number of enemies and us having next to no ammo. But it isn't so bad. We simply run for it, avoiding as many enemies as we can while grabbing all the supplies we can carry. We gun down anyone that gets in our way, grab the emblem, then head up to open our escape route. It isn't so bad, until it really is. What with us getting blasted, grabbed and punched near to death, right at the end of an otherwise near perfect attempt. But we do escape in one piece, more or less, albeit without any shells to our name. A chainsaw chap attempts to end us, but we roadrun her out of there, bursting into the house and relative safety. A quick puzzle later and we have to deal with another foe. Is this the guy from the bathroom? Did he literally shit himself to death? Did he wash his hands? Anyway, we dispatch him before proceeding up to the bedroom for another tussle with Mendes. Just when things start looking dicey, Ada swoops in for the save, causing Mendes to simply forget what he was doing and walk away. Nice. Right, back to the mission, time to get to the church. But not without first saving the bestest boy. Or at least I assume it's a boy. Maybe it's a girl. Maybe this is an unnecessary tangent. Maybe I should just move on. We head back into the village, stumble into some conveniently unplanned demolition work, and get ripped to pieces by a monster doggo. Having learned our lesson, we ignore the dogs and escape into the reassuring safety of a nearby trap and the embrace of the village harlot. Third time's the charm though, as we disarm the bomb and gracefully evade the follow-up villagers before bursting through to a moment of safety. And an excuse to talk about ad hoc rule number 2. Basically, if it's not an enemy, then I don't have to use a shotgun. This rule is really just to allow me to kill local wildlife for some healing items, and to make getting past certain puzzles in the castle not an absolute hassle. We head through the graveyard and down the coastal path towards the quarry. Things get a little hairy as we get mobbed, requiring a few panic blasts before we leg it for our dear life. We head straight through in search of boat fuel, which mostly involves avoiding multiple enemies, snakes and bombs in a swamp maze. It's not a problem though. We blitz through the enemies with the grace of a drunken gazelle until we get to the hut containing the fuel, before immediately forgetting why we were there and instead attempting to leave, resulting, unsurprisingly, in a fatal encounter of the sickle kind. The second attempt goes a little more to plan, with us grabbing the fuel and then forgetting how to get out of the area. Eventually, after a few more laps, we escape and make our way to the lake for a moment of peace and tranquility on the water, which lasts about 5 seconds before Del Lago emerges from the deep for their after dinner treat. And there isn't a whole lot to say about this fight. It's a set piece, so we simply have to lug great big harpoons at it until it dies. It doesn't start particularly smoothly, with us taking 2 bumps and going to low health almost immediately. But we manage to claw it back as we evade their big attacks and nail them in return. A few short minutes later, the beast lets out a wail of defeat, and Leon decides he deserves a celebratory power nap. Awakening refreshed and ready to party, we proceed into the deep dark woods in search of the next big thing. Turns out it's the introduction of tentacle head monster dudes.
Nope.
Ah well, let's just go and get on with some fetch questing. Thankfully, said fetch questing is relatively straightforward. We just need to grab 2 MacGuffins to get the church key. We do some backtracking to gather supplies and to practice our spearfishing. The whole thing is a rather uneventful, welcome break, besides a close call with some monster dogs. And the reward for all that? The final damage upgrade for the W870, but it's just the calm before the storm. With the church key in hand, we head back through the quarry, coming face to face with the first potential roadblock of the run, El Gigante. He bursts out full of fury, clearly in need of a Snickers.
You get a little hostile when you're hungry. Better? Better.
For our part, we have a decent supply of ammo and some emergency backup crafting material, but it still isn't going to be straightforward. We start with the few mandatory attempts that result in outright failure, a headless Leon and some lessons learned,
Oh, nasty.
before coming back for an attempt that involves a modicum of strategy. Dodging him isn't terribly difficult, although we take more than a few beatdowns. Bringing the pain is straightforward enough. He has a fairly gigantic head that we can simply unload into. The parasite poses a bit of an issue. We really need to shoot this if we want to maximise our damage output and minimise our ammo expenditure, but it's hard to get close enough to deal much damage due to the shotgun spread. Even worse, ammo quickly becomes an issue. So what's the solution? Well, firstly, we avoid smashing any crates until we're low on ammo to maximise our chance of shotgun shells spawning, which really does make a difference. As to getting the shots on the parasite, we just need to focus on headshots until he takes a knee and then shift focus. The bestest dog with undetermined gender also shows up to help. This results in El Gigante clocking himself against the quarry wall, leading to some free shots on the parasite. A little more patience and a lot more ammo, and that's all she wrote. The parasite pops. El Gigante decides life is just a bit too hard, and we depart victorious with exactly bugger all ammo to our name. And after all that hardship, we just about make it to the church in one piece, solve a fun little puzzle, and come face to face with Leon's whole purpose for being at this moment in time, Ashley. And yes, she will be wearing the sunglasses for the whole run. In my mind, Ashley must be legally blind, or else how can I explain her running headfirst into every enemy? Ugh, it hurts just thinking about it. So yeah, the villagers come after us and we bloody well run for our dear lives. This involves Ashley getting grabbed constantly, and us having to spend the few precious shells we have as we attempt to cajole her out of the graveyard. In the village, it's even worse with there being far too many foes to deal with. We sneak as far as we can and then we leg it, hoping that Ashley will make it. It takes numerous attempts, but we do eventually make it through the gate after mowing down numerous groping threats. We apply our ninja skills once more to grab some supplies and push through the threats around the farm, although I'm not really sure I want to, what with the single biggest threat to date looming on the horizon. We flee across the bridge towards said threat as Luis beckons us inside, promising safety where I know there is none. Enter the dreaded cabin survival section. And holy crap, this bit is intense at the best of times, never mind having to get through it with the barest of supplies. We go in with 5 shells, some reserved crafting supplies, and the potential for a few ammo spawns. And I can tell you right now, that if we get through this, it will be by the smallest of margins. To get through this by kills, we need to defeat at least 30 enemies, or 22 and the final bull guy. That will require a whole heckin' load of ammo, especially considering not every hit will be a kill, and that some kills will result in more advanced enemy types appearing. But we try it. We leave Luis on the ground floor while using the stairs to filter the enemies, allowing us to nail our shots. We down enemy after enemy, taking blow after blow in return. The villagers start to swamp us. We burn through the ammo drops and start relying upon crafted rounds. More villagers arrive with ladders and we get overwhelmed. And then we go down, with 6 shells left to our name and the objective still miles away. But I have a cunning plan.
Yes, perhaps, but I think I may have a more cunning one.
It turns out that you can bypass the first 17 kills simply by staying alive for long enough. 5 minutes and 40 seconds to be precise. An absolute lifetime in context, but a glimmer of hope all the same. So began the initially fruitless attempt to run in circles, avoiding blows for longer than the age of the earth itself. And it did not go well, at least at first. And then it did. The ladders arrived without us having fired a shot. We could get through this, so we got to kicking ladders down and blowing away anything that got in our way. The bull bloke appeared, signalling the end was nigh. Excited, we pressed on knowing that we only needed a few more kills. It was inevitable. We were unstoppable. And then we died. We despaired, but we tried again. And we died. And we died. And we died. And when we simply couldn't die anymore, we stopped dying, started killing, and somehow against all odds triggered the cutscene signalling our escape. Never before have I been so glad to see Ashley. And after that ordeal, it was all sunshine and roses. For about 2 minutes. We got a new shotgun, the riot gun, which is an absolute powerhouse with a tight spread and well suited to carrying us for the rest of the run. After more than a few failed attempts, we blast through the next section, downing almost everything in our way, and then head through to the next nightmare area. Who would have guessed? We need to deal with more enemies than we can possibly kill, including the Chainsaw Sisters, while grabbing a winch, using it to open a gate, and simultaneously preventing Ashley from getting abducted. I don't swear often, but fuck this section.
It's just fucking shit!
It quickly became clear, following a few failures, that we need to down the sisters as quickly as possible. So we do just that. Ashley gets abducted more times than I can count, but that too brings a lesson with it. As long as we keep the enemy carrying her in sight, she won't be taken away. Now this can actually be advantageous, as she gets a free ride towards the escape route. timed correctly, and we can even use the disruption of freeing her to create just about enough time for us to open the gate. And I do mean just about enough, as opening the gate came down to luck. I simply had to hope that the enemies wouldn't bother to attack me while I was turning the winch. Thankfully though, we eventually pushed through and onto the Mendez escape sequence, which naturally came with its own challenges. Without ammo to spare, we had to thread the needle, keeping Ashley far enough away to avoid axe throws, and then bringing her back in close when I needed to blast through enemies and get over the escape bridge. And all of that hardship faced simply to come up against the game's first proper boss, Mendez in a burning barn with his insect arms. Now, you might be expecting this to be brutal, and if you are, then you are thankfully wrong. We swiftly make our way to the upper level and begin dodging the blows we can and taking the others on the chin. Not being able to deflect sucks, but we can heal through it. From there, we can unload into Mendez and down his first form in a single cycle due to our max power riot gun. The second phase is a little bit tougher due to the shotgun not being as great at range, and my own inability to dodge flaming spears. It doesn't take long though before we are able to fill him with enough lead and shards of explosive barrel that he simply gives up and goes to sleep. So, with a series of overwhelming challenges out of the way, we escape through the fire and the flames, onwards to Little Ramon's big castle, and a further near-eternal sequence of suffering. Talking about castles, do you know why they build castles? It turns out it's to keep people out, and they very nearly did that here. This section consisted of loads of enemies, many of whom would simply make straight for Ashley. And then there's the rapid fire catapults, raining fire down upon our heads. The plan was to thread the needle, to run through as fast as we can, dodging everything we could and getting out of there. But we just couldn't. Ashley would get grabbed, we would get stabbed, immolated, or otherwise ganked. We had 9 shells and a lot more than 9 enemies to square off against, but we had to manage. So we blasted through everything that got in our way, used explosive barrels to thin out the catapults, smashed the gate open, then took the long route round to avoid tangling with too many more enemies. And onward we pushed. Ramon introduces himself.
Such a pleasure to finally make your acquaintance, Mr. Kennedy.
And then sends his goons after us when we refuse to cooperate. We back up to create space and then save Ashley from being captured. After giving Ashley a leg up and taking a beating in the process, she is able to open the gate and allow us to escape for now. In the dungeon, we down our first Garrador. With him down, we have a little bit of pocket money, so we set to spending it. Back with the merchant, we get the fabled exclusive damage upgrade for the riot gun. This was a serious step up, but unfortunately, the last damage upgrade available to us for the rest of the game. It's all downhill from here, guys. And we were going to need the damage upgrade, as, surprise surprise, we have another contender for the most brutal part of the game yet. Well, kind of. This bit should be awful, but I've sort of learnt my lesson by this point. Sometimes, you've just got to kill absolutely everything. We lure some enemies back towards the save point to create some space, and use the lower level to funnel a load more. That isn't to say we avoid getting overwhelmed and raked constantly, but it does make it a little bit easier. Eventually though, we manage to grab the wheel and use it to unlock the route to the upper level. From there, we simply cover Ashley as she raises the bridges to get out of there, while simultaneously running in circles to keep the cultists off of our back. Finally, battle weary and tired to the core, we escape back outside for a moment of reprieve. Not that we get it, as Ashley immediately gets a case of the possessed crazies and tries to kill us before fleeing. On the plus side, we don't have Ashley with us for a while, which means dodging past enemies is once again a viable strategy. Even better, we now have the body armour, which massively improves their survivability, which is incredibly handy as we once again enter a room full of enemies, and to top it off, one of them does have a tendency to cause regular guys to become considerably more of a threat. We blow the living heck out of him, and then proceed to the castle walls. Making our way over the walls goes smoothly enough through a combination of blasting and dodging. When the boulder throwing giant activates, things get a little spicier as we repeatedly misjudge our positioning and get smooshed.
You guys are really starting to become a giant pain in my...
Still, we manage to push through and blast this brute with a cannon. Of course, We then forget to open the gate, resulting in some unnecessary bumps when I have to double back. And unfortunately a potential failure in the challenge. Did we need to kill that giant? I never gave it a thought at the time, but perhaps we could have bypassed him with some luck. Oh well, no point in crying over spilt milk. After reuniting with Ashley and reassuring her that she isn't a complete monster, we push on through the gardens, blasting some doggos in the hedge maze. Back inside, we get to gathering some statue heads. The first comes from a straightforward dinner table puzzle. The second from the application of extreme force in a room full of cultists and their leader. The last through a combat arena involving numerous suits of armour. They aren't so bad, but they take a lot of shots to go down, and there isn't anything we can do to make it easier. Our supplies start to get dangerously low, but a bit of spawn luck eventually sees us through. And then on to use the statue heads to proceed to the next area. But, oh no!
It's a trap!
Leon shows us his moves, dispatching some cultists with style, while Ashley sensibly runs for dear life. So then we do the running about as Ashley and trying not to get insta-killed thing. It isn't so bad though. We use the torch to stun the suits of armour, or simply avoid them. We solve a few puzzles, and ultimately free Leon. Then Ashley gets dragged off again. Back with Leon, and we need to get through a room containing a seemingly unlimited number of flying beasties. These guys are weak and easy to take down if you have the ammo to spare. We don't have the ammo to spare, so we blast through the first few to thin their numbers a bit, before opening the door back to the previous section. Now all we need to do is simply run through them to activate 2 switches. But that isn't actually simple. We dodge as many as we can, and we have to take a few blows on the chin. Thankfully, we can afford to spend some healing at this point. We hit the first switch, drop down, then weave our way to the second. With that hit, we proceed through to another awful section. The throne room antechamber consists of far more enemies than we can possibly kill, and 2 claw-wielding Garradors. We can get swamped easily, and the big guys can cut us to ribbons. But they aren't actually very smart, so it's entirely possible to use noise to lure them into attacking their mates. It takes a few attempts, lots of heals, and some serious patience, but the herd begins to thin, so we down the first big guy to make things a little safer for ourselves. As the enemies stop coming, all we have to do is finish the second one. And he goes down easily enough. And then, onwards to save Ashley. Onwards to victory. Onwards to fall into another trap and almost plunge to her death. We survive that and a quick jaunt through a bug-infested cavern and find an escape elevator. Of course, the power is out and the Xenomorph's little brother has every intention of stopping us. Now, we could kill him. Maybe. We could use all the ammo we have and burn through our crafting reserve, and I'm sure he would go down. But we don't. We're just going to nope the heck out of there, I think. A lot of liquid nitrogen, dodging, and patience sees us restocked for the next challenge, and then escaping to face the next threat. As we emerge into the mines, our best buddy Luis conveniently shows up to offer his aid, and a little something something to see us through the darkest of times.
Tell you what, that crack is really Moorish.
So we set off with him on a bit of a rampage, blasting a whole room full of enemies away, before grabbing some TNT and then blowing our way through a blocked tunnel.
'Cause I'm TNT!
Then our 2 bros get challenged to an obviously fair fight from some bigger boys. Thankfully, no matter what you've been led to believe, it turns out size doesn't in fact matter. The first one gets forced to his knees before having its mouth cleaned out with soap and lava. The second one is armoured, but Luis pulls some TNT out of his ass to even the odds. A little bit of patience and a whole lot of badly missed shots leads to this foe taking a knee in just the right position for a lava bath. Onwards we push. Onwards to some scripted on-the-rails Donkey Kong.
Okay!
That forces me to use Luis's gun or die. Thankfully, this is a scripted section, so it definitely doesn't feel the challenge. Anyway, we minecart our way forward, blasting barrels and popping villagers, before putting our fate in the hands of gravity when the break, well, breaks. Having survived impossible odds, we run blindly through some more bloody flying beasties, avoiding as many as we can in an effort to conserve ammo, and then forward once more to another elevator, and a sliver of hope that we may get out of this in one piece. But of course we don't. Well, Luis doesn't anyway.
Luis!
I guess we should probably take revenge and deal with Krauser then? And this one again is scripted, with the knife being the only weapon we can use. There isn't anything we can do about it, so we simply commit to using a basic knife and getting through this as quickly and stylishly as we can. We don't fully accomplish the objectives. But wait!
Surprise, motherfucker!
Luis is alive, and he comes to our rescue, running Krauser off. Nice one, Luis. I knew you would be fine. Oh, wait, actually, turns out it's too late. Ah well, time to push on. Back in the castle, we take a moment to contemplate, to plan our next move. We need to make sure we make the correct decision. Okay, decision made. We need to egg Ramon's portrait. And he seems impressed. Or maybe he's being facetious. Ah well, we'll just have to catch up with him to find out. So we make our way up the tower, avoiding traps and using them to our advantage. With a mound of broken, flattened, smouldering cultists in our wake, we hit the button to start the elevator and get to spending some ammo. This is another section where we simply have to kill everything that gets in our way. The lift won't move if anyone else is on it. We dodge flaming bolts and blow cultists into fleshy lumps. And then we make it to the top, where we proceed, oh so carefully across the fragile planks, before making a final dash to see Ashley being whisked away by Krauser, leaving us to face off against Ramon, who we dispatch with ease. 2 in the chest, 1 in the head, and it's all over. Except, you know, not really. He does the whole mutating into a giant monster thing and attempts to kill us. We start by unloading 5 shells into his stupid face. Before doing some resource gathering, he chases us about, blasting us with his acid and traps at first, before we find our footing. From there, we simply keep ourselves out of his direct line of sight and put a shell into him whenever he exposes himself. We keep shooting and we keep moving. Our ammo starts to run low and I start to worry that we would have to dip into our reserves. We do, but it's worth it, as it gives us the ammo we need to open up on this pathetic creature as he sits there vulnerable, unable to respond. From one last colossal blast from our boomstick, he rears up and cries, knowing the end has arrived, and finally, thankfully, stops bloody talking.
I'm gonna just stop talking! Finally!
With all the haste Leon can muster, which isn't a whole lot, we try to catch up with Ashley, only to see her being driven away in a boat by Krauser. Thankfully, we know someone with their own right that may be amiable. Amiable up until the point where it doesn't serve her to stick with us, that is. After docking up, we proceed onto the island, an industrialised hellscape swarming with traps and seriously tough foes. We start by trying to sneak through, but this doesn't last long with us swiftly being caught. The enemies open fire and a boar man with a wrist-mounted machine gun bears down upon us, but we just keep moving. A few stray shots catch us, but we make it through only to get beaten up some more. And some more. And even more. A rocket guy appears, so we remove him from existence before stumbling through to relative safety. Inside, we spot Ashley and get right on to looking for our way to free her. We duck past a mob, get jump scared, then get to solving puzzles in pursuit of an access card. Oh, and we spend lots of time evading one of the game's most terrifying enemies, the Regenador. In the next area, one of these guys has merged with a wrench. We need that wrench, and we will need to obliterate him to get it. Which is a lot easier said than done. You're supposed to use the bioscope to destroy the parasites, but we can't do that with a shotgun. We try to blow away the correct chunks of flesh to reveal the parasites below, so we can blast them. However, it's very much an exercise in simply spending ammo. It quickly becomes clear that this isn't going to work.
Start again, rethink it.
So we buy a rifle to go with the bioscope. Not to fire, mind you, but to see if we were even attacking the correct enemy, and to work out where the parasites are ahead of opening fire. It's still an ammo dump, but it at least results in a fine bloody mist and a wrench in hand. From there, we upgrade our access card while playing keep away, and then hightail it to save Ashley. Not that she's going to stay Ashley for much longer if we can't get rid of her in her spirit grab. The next section consists of a series of combat encounters that we more or less have to deal with to prevent Ashley from being abducted. It isn't so bad other than the ammo cost. And then it is so bad. We hit a room containing another Regenador, and we don't have a crate of ammo to spare to take him down. Even better, we can't proceed without both Leon and Ashley pulling a switch simultaneously. Well, this sucks. We've got one chance to get this right. We lure the Regenador away from the door and then dash back. With split-second timing, we simultaneously pull the switch while getting dunked. Thankfully, the door opens. In the next area, we separate from Ashley so we can get the power back on. As soon as we hit the switch, we make with the Billy Big Legs to avoid another Regenador sleeping in the trash. And to get back to Ashley before she dumps us for another man. Anyway, many shotgun blasts later and we are able to escape this area. Only, the next area is a Doom Arena and we have next to no ammo. We need to protect Ashley as she breaks down a wall that is preventing our progress. There's wave after wave of increasingly challenging enemies, and there doesn't appear to be a timer that we can try to outlast. And trust me, I tried. We have to kill pretty much everything, and we don't have close to enough ammo. With everything we find in the arena, we are able to see off the first couple of waves. Explosive barrels help, and we deal with a couple of brutes, but then we run dry. So we dip into the crafting reserves. We dip hard. Rocketeers spawn, so we dispatch them early. Crawling Plaga emerge en masse to latch onto the backs of our still standing foes, driving them berserk and rampaging. This ramps up the pressure. An explosive barrel or two does some work, but ultimately not enough to stop us from having to craft more shells. We fire and craft. We get bashed and grabbed, but we endure until eventually only a few foes remain, and Ashley breaks through the wall. And then we get the hell out of there, feeling defeated with over half of our crafting reserve up in smoke.
It's just gone.
And even worse, Sadler puts in an appearance to abduct Ashley again. What a shocker. But we persist, managing to work our way through an enemy camp, surprisingly gaining a decent stock of ammo, just in time to square off against Krauser once more. A bit of back and forward, and we find out Krauser's motivation.
Pure, unadulterated power.
Unless I'm mistaken, I think he's talking about our shotgun. Maybe we should show him how it works. So we do just that. We be the mouse to his cat, evading gunfire and explosive arrows, until he comes in for the kill. Then we spring our counter trap and open up. Point blank blasts for serious damage. He flees and we pursue him through his gauntlet, blasting his traps out of the way while taking his sneak attacks on the chin. Back outside and we're able to proceed from cover to cover up the path towards Krauser and some more direct combat. And this is where we excel. We simply open fire, turning them bloody and bringing the pain. We have a close call, but we are able to proceed to Krauser showing us his secret weapon. Not that it's going to be enough to stop us. The plan is simple. Bring the pain at every possible opportunity. We can avoid some blows by keeping our distance or evading. Some blows get through, but we're able to withstand this without too much trouble. His aerial attacks will likely be insta-kills if they hit, but we get around this by simply climbing a ladder. A few cycles of up and down, trading blows throughout, leads to another ammo shortage and a defeated former mentor. At least we didn't have to kill him. That would have been sad. Oh, god damn it, Leon! With Krauser dispatched, we refocus our sights on the mission at hand. A mission that could be about to get significantly easier as the cavalry arrives and begins to carve through any and all opposition. Mike, you badass legend, you champion amongst men. A hero like you is sure to persist through this game series for years to come.
Mike!
Of course, as you likely guessed, the mission didn't get any easier. In fact, I think it would be fair to say that this was the single hardest section in the entire run. There are so many enemies that avoiding them is almost impossible. Our ammo reserves are incredibly low, and I just can't seem to get any ammo to spawn. We try dodging to conserve ammo, but every attempt is an outright failure. We blast through everything that gets in our way, but it doesn't seem to matter as dozens of enemies simply take their place. And through all this, not a single shotgun shell spawn. I'm not going to hold you in suspense though, as we do somehow manage to figure out how to get this to work.
Well, that's a relief.
Getting ammo to spawn again involves selling just the right amount of gear. Basically, you can influence ammo spawns in favour of shotgun shells by having some other ammo types in your inventory, but by having too many, it means that absolutely nothing at all will spawn. I also made a point of repeatedly going back to the merchant for armour repairs, which massively improved our survivability. So we blast our way to the next arena with a few shells left. Not that they're going to be enough. We have to pull 2 switches while under constant fire from many enemies and a couple of turrets. The first switch is easy enough due to our well-honed ninja skills. The second though is an absolute nightmare. All we can do with the ammo we have is clear out a few guys directly in front of us while taking continuous damage until we just happen to stumble to the switch. It goes wrong multiple times, but we do eventually make it. And then we have to get back out through the mob to escape, which is even worse. With that horror over, I think it's time to speed this thing up and get to the end. We sneak to avoid waking some Regenadors, battle our way through the next arena, this time with plenty of ammo thankfully, and then come face to face with Sadler once again. The end looks inevitable, but Ada sweeps in like a guardian angel, buying us some time to save Ashley and get her to Luis's lab.
Go!
We almost don't make it, but our plot armor kicks in when we need it the most, allowing us to stumble in, save Ashley, and then keel over and die? Oh, Capcom, you thought you could build suspense despite the Resident Evil chronology having already established that Leon is going to be absolutely fine.
They forgot.
And then, all of a sudden, after a little more lollygagging, we come to the final showdown of the game. A showdown that we've somehow managed to be incredibly over-prepared for, what with us having 15 first aid sprays, and the potential to craft between 30 and 40 shotgun shells. It seems we may have been a little too conservative at a few earlier parts in the game. We head in and save Ada, much to Sadler's chagrin. He goes all big mad monster thing, thinking that this will be enough to take out an overstocked Leon S. Kennedy, but it isn't. There isn't a whole lot to say either. We unload into his eyes to deal damage and force him to take a knee, before forgetting to actually take advantage of this. We run about a bit, restocking some supplies, shoot Sadler some more, and fend off his buggy mates. And sure, we take plenty of bumps in the process, but we aren't even really trying not to if we're being honest. We blast him and down him, we open up into him when he's vulnerable, and before you can blink, he pulls the whole pretending to die but actually transitioning into a set piece thing. And said set piece is all about staying alive until Ada delivers the goods, so it's a foregone conclusion really. Of course, we have all this ammo going spare, so we may as well use it. So we do. And then we fire a rocket down his gullet. And then he dies. And then we jet ski to freedom. Definitely without dying an unreasonable number of times. Hurrah! So finally, as we emerge into the sunlight with hope in our hearts and the promise of a better day, we are able to answer the question we asked a lifetime ago. Can you defeat the Resident Evil 4 remake on a professional new game run using only the shotgun? You absolutely can. It was a nightmarish challenge to be sure, but at least partially one of my own creation. Some of the worst sections could have been made easier by actually using our healing and crafting supplies, and by better managing our ammo spawn RNG. The awful sections would have still been awful, but with fewer enemies they might have been a little more palatable. And all of this left me with one last question. Could this have been done without ammo crafting? The short answer is I don't know, but I don't think so. We might have had an abundance of ammo overall, but there were still some sections where we had to dip into our crafting supplies a lot to even stand a chance. Not that I think I'll ever know the answer to that question, as I'm sure as hell not going through that again. Anyway, that's it, we're done. In the meantime, if you need an intense challenge fix, why don't you check out the video linked on screen? That one is a real doozy. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.